In this episode, we talk about blockchain in the food systems and an actual company that's implementing it.
Bitcoin is the modern version of gold.
Bitcoin is incredibly popular.
People have made fortunes out of Bitcoin.
Bitcoin went through the roof.
You think this is a currency?
Hold on a minute. If you know everything about blockchain and the industries that it's implemented in, which means you do realize that it's not merely Bitcoin and crypto, then this show is not for you. So thank you. Have a good day. However, if you do not know everything about blockchain and those industries, then put your headphones on. My name is Marek, and by no means am I an expert in either blockchain or those industries, but I do interview people who are in this show. Welcome to What the Fork.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of What the Fork. I'm Marek, your host, and I'm here with
Pronk.
Thank you. So before I tell anyone about you, could you please give us a little introduction of yourself?
Yeah, well, my name is Pronk. I've been working for more than 25 years in food, fast-moving consumer goods and retail, with a always focus on innovation, new product development, more than average interest in digitization, digital innovation or solutions to improve or make companies more efficient or which make lives easier. So in relation to the food and the innovation and the digitization, I came across blockchain about 1.5, 2 years ago, and it got my interest. So besides that, I'm working as a consultant, supervisor for some companies or institutions and doing some interim jobs. I'm interested in the development of making blockchain in the food industry bigger.
Okay. How did you first learn about blockchain? How did you get into blockchain? Or where did you come across it?
Yeah, like I said, I'm always interested in innovations. So blockchain is a new way of, well, it's an innovative approach at least. And digitization, I came across on blockchain. I don't know whether it was in INSEAD, which I did a course on INSEAD on digital strategy. But if you read the newspapers in that context, a lot of things were written about blockchain and the price of the Bitcoin got up and up and up. So I wanted to know more about the technology behind it. And it immediately caught my interest in the relation with agro industry or food industry, because tracking and tracing as a part of a sustainable society is very important. Consumer wants more and more to know where products are coming from. Brands, manufacturers, retailers want to give this transparency, but they're not always able to do that. So tracing it back via a good system which is secure, safe, transparent can be, I think can be a very interesting proposition. It's very infant as a technology, so we're in the early stages, but things will proceed, and I trust there will be a role for a, let's say, blockchain-inspired propositions in the future.
Okay, so just a little bit of assuming that somebody knows nothing about blockchain, do you mind, in a nutshell, just giving us a short explanation of what blockchain is? I know probably the most difficult question of this interview. But,
difficult one, yeah. Well, for me, I think everybody has their own perspective, because I can give a very technical explanation, or I think I can't even give a very technical explanation. But the true value for me of blockchain is that you add in the supply chain step by step more information, and you cannot change the information once it's in. So you have an agreement at the end of the day, or the end of a timing period, in which you fix the information, and every next step, next block is based on the previous information. So there's no way of cheating or fraud. It's been put in the system which is not changeable. So you build upon further. And I know if you start with wrong data, it goes into the whole system, in the whole supply chain, and it stays the wrong data. But I see the blockchain solution as a next phase, a next step in getting the supply chains more transparent. No, you can't get it 100%, but it's a next step, making it more honest.
Yeah. If you by any chance watched the first episode with Ricardo Garcia, he talks about this, how blockchain does not validate the data and make sure that the data is true, but it just makes sure that the data cannot be changed or tampered.
Correct. And especially if you work in an environment where you have to trust on the next layer in the supply chain, and trust is difficult because there's not a good communication system or there's not a good registration of the data, then the blockchain can be very helpful. And I came across on a proposition built for smallholders in developing countries, and those smallholders don't have anything, or they have the paper to write upon, but a paper is very vulnerable as well. You've got your 20 bags of cacao, you deliver and you get a receipt in which it says there are 18 bags of cacao. So where are you in your proof? So if you can put this information on the blockchain and have both parties agree upon this data, it can't be changed looking back in time.
Yeah.
So for this environment where smallholders are less automated, bad communication, low trust, it can be very helpful for them, not only to increase the trust within the blockchain, but as well to make the whole chain more efficient, because you can forecast your fresh produce more precise. If I tell my cooperative who I'm selling my fresh produce that in week number 35 my products are ready to harvest, the cooperative, can arrange transport and help me with harvesting. He agrees upon in the blockchain. So the whole transport and the harvesting is much more efficient. If he comes 2 weeks later, my fresh produce is already declined in quality and quantity. So it is the aspect of transparency, fraud, etc. But it's as well a big driver for efficiency in the supply chain. It's in a way a enterprise resource planning, an ERP. What we have here in the Western Europe countries, we call big ERP systems like SAP. By all means, I don't want to compare the two of them, but it gives a smallholder a certain ERP solution which makes their supply chain, their production much more efficient.
Okay. So it makes it more efficient, and it protects it from from things like fraud and theft.
But that one is a bit the negative way of looking at it. I think it enhances communication, it enhances working together, it makes planning, forecasting easier, and the effect of these influences is much higher than the minimization of the fraud. Yet it goes together hand in hand.
Interesting way to look at it. Actually, I haven't come across it yet. So do you see? Okay, let's talk about AgUnity a little bit, because you work for AgUnity currently. So tell us a little about AgUnity and what AgUnity is.
AgUnity is a platform inspired by the blockchain. It's not a blockchain sec, it's more than that. It's inspired by blockchain, and it has apps and other functionalities integrated. So it's a platform for smallholders and cooperatives. Works on the same at the same moment for both parties, which makes trading, communication, e-commerce easier. It gives smallholders a kind of education, or makes best practices available on the site. It gives, as a platform, access to a trading market. It has a payment functionality, a wallet. Well, and the transfer of ownership is via a digital handshake, via a QR code. So a smallholder places photographs of the harvest or the produce which is growing step by step, week by week. And when the moment is right, it puts it on the last photo on the blockchain and says, this is ready for harvest. And then the coop knows exactly what to do. And so they exchange their information, and the photos being made are the proof of the quality and the quantity of the fresh produce. And this information is being put on the blockchain. So once the payment is done, or the payment is due to pay, then you cannot say like there were 10 bags instead of 12 bags, or the quality was different, or it looked like because you've got the proof behind you.
Yeah. So AgUnity, all the capabilities of blockchain that we were talking about, the capabilities that it has in the food supply chains, AgUnity is basically applying those.
Yeah, I don't know if you when you say all of them, but what they do is they have a handheld device, a phone, a digital phone with very easy to understand pictograms. So anyone who's using it don't need to have a certain language or Excel or numeric skills. It's touching the pictogram, and it says this is to harvest, this is to plant, this is to forecast, this is to different functionalities.
User friendly.
Very user friendly. Devices are being given to a farmer, including some interesting apps like YouTube, because you want the app to be used, and the farmer wants it as well, that his family is using it as well. If you just give the main functionality of the data of the blockchain, it is less attractive for the farmers.
I mean, this is essentially people who live in very rural
areas.
Developing countries, I'm assuming.
It's far eastern and African countries, correct? Yeah. And so the handheld device, they're able to make photographs of the fresh produce of the field, and they can integrate apps like weather conditions or any other interesting app solutions. Can be integrated in this AgUnity platform. So in a way, AgUnity is the supply platform in which is the base for the smallholder to have the business from seed to selling to the coop, to the open market, and all kinds of education, weather, feeding instructions, etc. apps can be added or integrated. So what is complex about this is the idea is very attractive, of course, and if I explain it and I get enthusiastic again, but it is rural areas and you have to do a lot of explanation, and the implementation is be done locally. So it's not only about a technical solution or platform, it is the hardware of the phones you have to distribute. You have to, in a way, educate or explain the concept to the cooperative as well. If there's not a cooperative, farmers have to organize themselves around a cooperative. That's even, that's like a step back before you can start. But even if there's a cooperative, implementation is being done locally, and you really have to have the knowledge of how these people work, think and act, because we've got our own Western Europe way of thinking, and effectiveness, efficiency, etc. are key drivers, and we talk like drivers efficiency, KPIs, ERPs, and it's a different language. So you have to partner in a way with other institutions or NGOs to jointly make the community ready to adapt and to develop themselves.
AgUnity engages in those.
Yeah, AgUnity is not. It's not a big company. You can do this alone. You really have to partner with other companies or partners. So the technical thing is one, and there are other areas which are quite complicated, like data ownership or ethical. Who's the owner of the data, and but one thing which is very complicated is how to show the added value to the smallholder who has been working for years, generations in a certain way. There's a skeptical work because what can you trust, and then but it's blockchain based, so what? What the fork?
Nice. Okay. Already getting the hang of the show. Yeah. Interesting. So AgUnity essentially connects the smallholders or the farmers with the next step of this.
Yeah.
Okay, with the cooperatives. Do like other bigger distributors and brands play a role in this, or are they?
Well, the cooperative in a way sells the produce to the open market, and those trading apps or trading functionality you can add. But the main functionality of the AgUnity platform is the working together of the smallholder and the cooperative. Okay. And if you look at the system, then it has two functionalities. One is for the cooperative and one is for the smallholder. And it's very interesting to see both sides working at the same time, how they communicate together, and how it, I don't know if this works.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, but it's very interesting to see how the two sides of the story, if you trade, because there's you hand over your produce, your beans or whatever you harvest. Yeah. So it's done from the perspective of the smallholders and from the perspective of the cooperative.
You said in the very beginning, brands didn't really have the ability to show transparently the journey that the product that they're selling has taken so far, right?
Well, not always. If you look at one piece of product which is being harvested like an apple and it goes to the consumer, then you could trace back the apple back in the whole value chain. But once the apple is apple juice or apple sauce, it is much more difficult, because then the applesauce comes from different factories or from different farmers. So every product which you find in a supermarket which is branded, it is difficult to track and trace back to the origin, to its original origin. It's difficult to trace it back to one farmer, especially when products are being produced or refined, or consistency is different. Like chocolate, it comes from the cocoa beans, which is mass balanced. So you've got different farmers who produce beans, and consumers want to have a consistent quality. They don't want in week one a certain taste in their chocolate bar and the other week another. Consistency, forecasting and consistency is very important. This is a whole food chain, which means that you have to add different kind of cocoa beans to make a certain quality. Whether it's cocoa or wine or applesauce, it's always a mix of different ripening, different varieties,
from different sources,
which at the end gives an average taste, and therefore at the end it's difficult or impossible to trace a chocolate bar back to a farmer. But consumers do have a wish for more information. They do want to have more trust, more transparency. So that's it's step by step, giving more more data into the supply and more traceability.
Do you think that's actually a growing demand from consumers?
Yeah, but I think it's for retailers the same question. They do want to know as well where they buy the products. If they buy the apples, where do they come from? Because they want to know if these apples are being treated fairly. Are they harvested by grown-up men and women or children? You don't want apples being harvested by children.
No.
Are they? Do they have the right pesticides? It's very difficult to have none, but if you do, not too much, and the right ones. So there are a lot of things you do want to have. You want to control when you buy your food. You want to do the same. If you buy a cup of coffee, you probably value it if you know that your coffee comes from Bali or whatever.
Yeah.
Country, and you could trace it back. And the further you can trace it back, the more interesting and the more value it has for you as a consumer. But the same is true for the retailer.
Do you see? Because obviously you said it yourself, blockchain's an infant, and because it's a complex and new technology, to see where it's going is very difficult. Like, we can only assume. What would your gut feeling be, or maybe even your observations or your
gut feeling is difficult because I'm not a visionary. I see the potential in the value chain, but if tomorrow new technology pops up which has more pluses versus the blockchain, it can go. But I see a lot of potential in the blockchain, and if I would make the prediction, I would show the Gartner figure, and the Gartner graph says it is beyond the hype momentum, so it's in decline of enthusiasm.
This is when
But
it gets real.
it comes back, and it always, if the Gartner curve is correct, it comes back even bigger and higher, like a wave, which pulls back first and then it comes back. If you look at articles in newspaper, then blockchain and food is a combination which has chances to be successful.
I'm just gonna do a quick intro. Okay.
Yeah, because I was shouting Joke Pronk, you were shouting.
Well, yeah, we're just shouting Joke Pronk. But no, this is more like, because in the end of the interview I like to, because now I kind of know what we talked about, and just give a little hint to anyone watching. But in this episode we talk about blockchain in the food systems and an actual company that's implementing it. Right. Joke Pronk, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome.